Oh, they have like live streaming built into Zoom. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's super, super easy. All right, we should be live now. Um, Inevitably, it's always a little confusing to figure out when you actually are and when it's loaded, but
Right.
I
Well,
think we are.
see the little
Um,
live thing there. So that's probably
yeah,
encouraging.
I think we're good. Cool. Well, I will kick us off. Hi folks, welcome to another weekly edition of Live with Astronomer. In these sessions, we do quick deep dives on airflow related topics, focused on the code and technical details to help developers get the most out of airflow. Today, as you can see, we're very excited to welcome on a special guest, Jed Cunningham, who is an Airflow PMC member and staff software engineer at Astronomer. And he's going to talk us through how you can contribute to the Airflow project. Jed, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Great. So to start, can you introduce yourself and let everybody know how you first got involved with the Airflow project and how you became a PMC member?
Yeah. So I feel like Kenton did a decent job introducing myself, but yeah, I'm Jed. So yeah, how I got involved. Yeah, basically I was running Airflow for a previous company, and I didn't want to maintain a fork of Airflow. And so contributing back to the community, the different fixes and things that my company was developing, made it easier on us, and then it also helped the community. Yeah, so I just kind of got started that way, and it's a little addicting. Once you start contributing and figure out how to do it, it becomes fun. And I kind of found myself doing it off hours, and kind of here we are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It is that very satisfying dopamine hit of merging a PR. I love
Definitely.
that. Yeah. Awesome. So we all know one of the great things about Airflow, obviously, and this is true to your story too, is that being an open source project, anybody in the community can contribute. But having spent some time with the community, one thing I hear a lot is that contributing can be pretty intimidating to newcomers. Can you walk us through the process for committing to Airflow? If somebody thinks that they might want to make a change or get involved in the project, where should they start?
Yeah. So it can be really easy. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. I'll make sure I get the right thing. There we go. So contributing to Airflow can be as easy as this, right? Let's say I'm looking at the docs and I go, you know what? We don't need this as DAG anymore. This is out of date. Like we don't need it anymore. Contributing docs changes can be this simple. We can just go suggest a change, brings us over to GitHub. It also, well, let me move this Zoom thing out of the way 1 second. It brings us right into an editor. We can come down here and go, you know what? We don't need that any longer. Commit our changes, and ta-da. The interface will look a little different for you, but you hit this button and it'll create a PR for you. You've just created your first Airflow PR. Now, I will say, don't be worried that like PRs with this level of change isn't enough. Like we love docs PRs. Our users contributing docs PRs is like one of the best things, because you all are the ones that are using the software day to day. Fresh eyes with documentation is always a great thing. So this is one way. Now, obviously, if you're dealing with more complex changes, the GitHub interface may not be the best way to approach it. There's a ton of information in contributing. I'm not going to go through all of it here. We'd be here way too long. But it talks about all kinds of stuff. Like it walks you through how to fork the Astronomer or the Airflow repo, how to get your environment going, like what you need to think about when you're doing a PR. Got steps for helping getting it through the review process. Like this is all well documented. And hey, guess what? If you go through this and you find issues, you can make a PR to this guide to help it, make it easier for future folks. Also, I will point out too that Airflow has a tool called Breeze that it basically is it wraps Docker on your local machine and makes it a lot easier to get an Airflow development environment up and running. So if you are looking at code changes, this is a good way to kind of get started with local development. And then my personal favorite way to develop Airflow is with local virtual environments. There's a document here that describes how to get all of that up and running as well. And yeah, all of these are just like right in the repo root. So it should be easy to find there.
Awesome. That's great. Definitely makes it seem a little more approachable. Of the steps you just went through, particularly going through the docs on how to contribute, are there any that you see people often get hung up on? Kind of where do people generally find they need the most help?
Yeah. So one thing we see a lot of is people will open PRs without any test coverage, right? And that's natural, right? It's easy to go in and find where a bug may be and kind of fix that runtime code. But running the test suite, finding where the tests for that, that feature live, like those kind of things can be a little challenging. But Airflow, we do try to be good with our test coverage. We do rely on our test suite a lot. And so, yeah, that's kind of an immediate red flag if, we see a PR that has no test coverage. More often than not, that'll, solicit a response of, hey, can we add some coverage? So that's something that we see frequently. Another one that's easy to miss, especially when you're first starting out, is configuring pre-commit in your environment. So Airflow uses pre-commit to do a bunch of like static checks that are relatively quick, and they can run right on your local machine, and that just saves you some time, because CI runs those static checks and they will fail eventually anyway. But if you configure pre-commit and catch those things early before you actually open the PR, that can save you some time and effort. And then I'll also just point out that if you have trouble with any of that type of stuff, we actually have a Slack channel that's designed, or it's intended for helping people that are on their, first few PRs journey. The channel is development first PR support. And yeah, like if you come in on your third or fifth PR, nobody's going to call you out. So it's more of, like, feel free to come in there. It's intended to help people get started with contributing, and, questions around like, hey, I'm working on X, where is the test coverage? Somebody will come in and help you find it. And yeah.
That's awesome. For those on their third through fifth PR, that means it's still available to myself.
There you
go. Awesome. So you talked a little bit about this with the test coverage, but as somebody who reviews a lot of these PRs, do you have advice for somebody who's committing in terms of kind of how they're organizing things or what they're putting in there that might make your life easier and also their life easier outside of the test coverage?
Yeah. Just being, I guess, so one thing is making sure that you keep your PR like concise. So like don't find 3 bugs and try to fix them all in one PR unless they're related, right? Like we're happy to have you open multiple PRs to keep your changes a little more isolated. It's easier to review, and it's easier retrospectively to like come back and look at those commits if they're a little bit more like isolated and concise. So that's one thing. Making sure that CI actually runs green. Every once in a while we'll get, drive-by contributions that, well, we talked about static checks, but maybe the test suite fails or whatever. Like making sure that you get your PR green before you kind of like sign off and go, hey, somebody will review it eventually, is a good thing to do. And then once you do get all these things working, right, you get a green CI run, be patient, but also be persistent. So if it's been a couple days and there's been no traction and you think your PR is relatively simple to review, don't hesitate to, post something in the development channel on Slack and be like, hey, this PR is ready for review. I'd love any feedback or whatever. That's a good way to kind of bring bring your PR to, the front of people's eyes. A lot of us get a ton of of GitHub communications, and it's really easy to miss things. And especially if you've done a good job of keeping things concise, right? Those are awesome because we'll see them. It'll be a quick review, a quick win. We get it merged, and everybody's happy. So yeah, patient but persistent is a good trait to have.
That's great. And I think as you went through, covered a lot of the resources for people. So in the Airflow docs on contributing, and also the Slack channel. And we will throw a link to those in the comments here. Are there any other resources you would recommend for people interested in committing to check out?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I guess I did a pretty good job of covering them already.
Okay, if there are no others.
But I mean, there's a lot of documentation in Airflow ultimately. I mean, if we look at it, there's one, two, three, four, five contributor quick start guides. And so like, there's definitely things that we haven't talked about. And yeah, I know I mentioned it earlier, but I'd really encourage, as you're going through these things, if things don't make sense, these are living documents, and contributions to these guides are just as valuable as contributions to the Airflow code itself. So, yeah.
Awesome. That makes sense. All right. Thanks so much, Jed, for going through all of that. Really great to hear about the process from one of the experts. For folks watching, definitely go join the Airflow Slack if you haven't already. Jed mentioned that is a great resource for if you're committing, or even if you're just getting started and want to connect with the community. I'll throw a link to that in the comments as well. And that's all we have for today. So thanks.